Great.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. As you know, this is AMCC's weekly 30-minute national call every Monday at the same time, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, 9:30 Mountain, and 8:30 Pacific. For those that are new, I'm Matt Bogosian, AMCC's Executive Director, and David Van Sicklen is our Operations Director. And we have lots and lots of regional and national manufacturing ecosystem leaders working together to strengthen the American project from the cornerstone of strong and sustainable manufacturing. Please put your name in the chat. We talk about it every week. Share info in the chat on events, successes, challenges, whatever. We get 30 minutes each week together. Let's make the most of it. We all have limited bandwidth, of course, but we know we got to accelerate the pace of progress. So let's make the most of it. Name, affiliation, and chat, and other stuff. Just drop it in. We have sometimes round robin Mondays where folks have more of an opportunity to chat and talk about their challenges and opportunities or whatever. And other Mondays like today, we have presentations. So today's a presentation day, and we're psyched to have Dr. Kelly Welsh from NIST's Baldrige program on to talk about those opportunities. But before that, two things. One, we want to highlight a few things from the AMCC update, as we do. If you're new, there's two weekly activities that AMCC does. One is this 30-minute call, and the other is the Friday, sometimes Saturday, AMCC update that goes out, and that's important. But before that, before I get to the updates, we like to give folks, new people or those who want to introduce themselves a short chance to remind us. Introduce yourself and remind us who you are and what part of the ecosystem you work from. So let me stop there. If there's somebody that wants to raise their hand or speak up to introduce themselves, please chime in now. Okay, cool. Always want to do that because we are welcome. This is a free open source network trying to strengthen the ecosystem. So
Hey, you had one. Hey, Matt,
Oh,
you had
sorry.
one hand raised just a second
Yeah,
ago.
thanks. Please, who is that?
Let's see. I think that would be Julie Michael Smith.
Hi, Julie.
Yes. Hi. Yes, it was me. Good morning. My name is Julie Michael Smith, and this is my first time joining. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from this group. I am with the Lawrence Mercer Manufacturing Coalition, which is a new industry sector partnership that formed in Western Pennsylvania. I learned about this group from some other IPs that were at a recent statewide meeting. I'm also affiliated with the Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition just over the state line in Ohio. And in Ohio, we also have a very strong industry sector partnership network spearheaded by the Ohio Manufacturing Association. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to work in both states and look forward to learning a lot from this group.
And Julie, so great to meet you. Thanks for being on. We look forward to learning from you too. We've had some great experiences in your neck of the woods. Petra Mitchell at Catalyst Connection has been a long time partner and leader within the IMCP and the AMCC community and many others in that region. Yeah. But it's so great to have you on board. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, cool. Let's always you can introduce yourself in the chat too. That's an easy way. Always want to keep space for that. Super important. And that's based on the feedback we got from you guys. So, any kind of a feedback to make this bottom-up work more successful, really complex system science applied in the manufacturing space in regions around the country. So, yeah, so introductions. Then we want to talk just quickly about a couple of things in the AMCC update. Julie, if you get the AMCC update, it's free. It comes out every week. Get it out to your networks. David, how does somebody get the AMCC update? Tell us more.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'll put the link into the chat right now. You can join on our website, and I'll make sure that you get added to that distribution.
It's that easy? Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. It's free. So Julie, like your networks, send that around to them. This is we'd love to share what's going on here and learn from your networks about how we do things better. The collective we do things better. So in the update, of course, these things come out every week, and they depend on you giving us, info to help populate it. A lot goes in there. David and I, of course, have the laboring oar and putting it together each week, but it's informed by like one key kind of thread of input comes from Andrew Reamer from the Industries Studies Association. And so that's a big input, the work that Dave and I do on our own, and also, of course, the input from you guys. So please keep it coming. This is a very informal tool, but it's been from many sources a really useful tool, nimble tool to help prioritize what the ecosystem of support needs to do to strengthen our manufacturing cornerstone. You can put in the chat info that we ought to put in the update, or
hey, Matt,
my phone, text, call. Yeah, please.
Alan has his hand raised.
Okay, great, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So just a quick note. Last Friday, Dr. Mike McGrath of NDIA's Manufacturing Division held the first formal meeting of his brand newly minted Defense Digital Manufacturing Working Group. And there is information to be shared. If anybody who is on this particular distro or on this section today wants more information and wants to be apprised of the organization and the effort and what's going on with it, my email is in the chat, and just send me an email. I'll be glad to put you in. I don't want to take more time than that, but thank you, David, and Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And your info is in the chat, and you might want to describe it a little bit more in the chat, just for reference as we go on. That's great. Thanks. Anything else, David? Did I miss any others? Okay, cool. Yeah, so the in the update, lots of info. Keep it coming. Alan, just modeling how easy it is. So in the update on Friday, of course, is another bit about the Tech Hubs national program, modeled after what a lot of, longtime AMCC, IMCP leaders around the country have been doing for the last 10 years. So check out the new examples in these Tech Hubs. We all have lots to learn from each other. That's another source. Another thing in the update is that, our friends at DoD, OLDCC, they have a July 30th webinar coming up about how regional leaders can help manufacturers get into defense contracting. Not easy, right? So that's a useful, I expect that to be a very useful share there. Of course, having sustainable manufacturing being core to America's sustainable development, DEIA is key. So, I see Gretchen on the call. It's great. Thanks for giving us the info about this kind of all virtual, I think it's August 15th virtual event that anyone can be a part of, right? We got to get like way more women into manufacturing careers. And so thanks for that. That looks like it's going to be very useful for regions around the country. And then on the Manufacturing Momentum Summit too, we've talked in previous calls, going back to the big national summit we had last September. We want to keep that going, and next steps to make that a continuous annual interagency / region BFF convening. Call out to thanks to the National Association of Counties, Matt Chase, just let us know this morning that they if some of our BFFs can't pony up a venue, that the National Association of Counties headquarters on Capitol Hill could be a place where we can do it. Thanks to him and the National Association of Counties and so many others, like Nathan Oley at IADC for being a part of that, of course, and our agency BFFs. TBD on that. I just want to keep you posted on good progress on that. So lots more in the AMCC update, to include a slew of federal intervention opportunities that apply to your region. So lots there. Now, let's turn back to our presentation today. Dr. Kelly Welsh from NIST's Baldrige program. Of course, NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. So it's no surprise that for decades, NIST has been, in this decades-long public-private partnership with Baldrige as a standard of sorts for continuous improvement for organizations, right, Kelly? Yeah, so especially focused on promoting U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness. So that's right in the heart of what we're doing. Thanks for being on and sharing what you guys do with our diverse and extensive regional communities and BFFs around the country. Kelly, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt and David. I appreciate the opportunity to get to chat to your community. I see some names in here that I recognize. That's a good thing. I feel like I'm, with friends. So today I'm going to tell, for those of you who don't know much about Baldrige, the intent here is to give you just a very high-level overview of the Baldrige program. As Matt mentioned, it is a decades old, actually 36 years, in time and tested traditions of basically providing an organizational development management tool that's for the whole of an organization. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a second. It was actually written, and I'm going to go ahead and share screen now, basically as a law that was essentially to answer the hemorrhaging that was happening in American manufacturing during the 1980s. We were losing a lot in an essential competition of quality to Japan, who were providing lots of quality products, and American products were not as great. And so there was a big shift in exodus. And the answer to that for the Department of Commerce at the time was to engage in creating a national quality award, the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. It's a presidential award, and it was to encourage and create some level of competition here in the U.S. and to define what quality is, because there wasn't necessarily a culture of quality. It was housed in NIST because it is in essence a standard of what is it to be a role model. Is it the only standard? No, but it's a standard. So let's talk a little bit more about Baldrige. And one of the reasons that Baldrige is relevant today, and it was back then and it has maintained it, is we're about improving performance and long-term success of businesses and other organizations. We reach out to education and healthcare, nonprofits, we're even in communities at this point. And one of the things that we know is that there's statistics about 1/5, 20% of businesses 5 years after they start, there's only about 20% of those that are still standing. It's not a great statistic. It's not a great level of success. And in some ways, there's a logic that goes to that. When you think about when an individual or a group of people get together and form a business or an organization or engage in building a complex nonprofit or organizational structure, it's rarely because they just like the joy of running a business. It's usually a product or a thing that they're making or a service that they're providing. And the expertise that it takes to run a complex organization, oftentimes that comes later down the line. And unfortunately, the consequences of that developmental kind of hallmark or step can be something that's too late, too little and too late. So one of the things that Baldrige still does and has done in all 3 decades, almost 4 that it's been around, is essentially through this national presidential award, it recognizes role models of excellence. And what does excellence mean? Essentially, it's excellence in processes and results. It's organizations that essentially show by their great results the wonderful processes that got them there. Their charge, once they win the award, is that they have to share those results in a national conference. So businesses and entities can come to the national conference that's here in the DC area, or they can find out more about these role model organizations online, because that's one of the stipulations of the award, is that you have to share what you know with others, because we know that human beings are social learners. So that's a big part of what we're trying to aim for, is not only just putting out some notion of standard, but showing that standard in actions through organizations. It's one thing to have exceptional results, but if others don't know how you got there, what and how are you learning? So we are about trying to foster the adoption of those proven practices. And there's many different ways that Baldrige provides that kind of structure for individuals, whether it's through our excellence builders or our other products. But the biggest thing that we offer is this concept of a systems management, the whole of organization, not part and parcel. And so essentially one of the kind of key things that we base most of Baldrige on is this idea of understanding what is important to your organization. Baldrige is not about telling businesses what's important to businesses or education what's important to education. We're about processes and results and a systematic approach to both, so that it's essentially the Swiss Army knife of organizational development, is the way I like to describe it. So you too can become a MacGyver of organizations. That's a throwback reference. Google it. So one of the key things that we're looking here at is, are your processes consistently effective? One of the things that we know with startups is that often it's each individual in that startup is a cowboy or a cowgirl, and everyone's wearing multiple hats and trying to get lots of things done. And usually it's centered around the building and making of this thing or providing this service. And it's hard to step back and take time to have a systems approach to that notion. One of the things that becomes very surprising when we start looking at organizational development in Baldrige's years of basically having individuals apply for the award and or get on the Baldrige learning journey is how much you can be doing things that aren't reaching your organization's needs or ends. They seem like they're good ideas. Somebody tells you it's the greatest, best thing to do, but is it really meeting your ends, and how do you know? How good are your results? How good is what you do compared to others? How do you know? So there's a systems approach to these things. And the most fundamental concept in organizational development and in Baldrige is your organization learning and improving? It's one thing to evaluate all kinds of things. I'm sure all of you have had this experience of measuring and evaluating just extensively. And then if you go and look at, well, where did those results go? What did they do? What did they change? How did they get moved into some actionable step? That's when you start seeing a huge drop off in something that is meaningful. So Baldrige would ask those questions. And Baldrige has lots of different assessment tools and instruments that help you know, are you making progress? No matter where you are in your journey as an organization, which sometimes that's a deep question for any of us, let alone an organization, a complex group of people trying to do a complex thing. So how is Baldrige relevant to manufacturing? And this is something that's an interesting question, which I think it's a notion of being trendy, this idea of like Lean and Six Sigma. Those are things that start to have their own kind of weight, or everybody knows about it. So they become almost this trendy, traditional thing. They move into traditional, and they're great. They're great tools. And the way that I would describe them in relevance to Baldrige is they are great tools for processes, for all kinds of processes. And your organization is made up of all kinds of processes. But what Baldrige does is it gives you a systems approach in which you would deploy Lean Six Sigma, in which you would use ISO's standards. So this is the notion and how you kind of think of it. It's not a this or that, it's both. So hopefully one might think, well, it seems almost stupid. Like, well, don't people know how to run their organization? And I think one of the things to talk about is what gets focused on in an organization. You can think of the product and the customer sometimes as the whole of the organization, and the leadership and the employees, and they're these discrete things, rather than thinking of them as holistic systems that touch and move and motivate each other. And having a mindset or a map, a conceptual framework from which to approach those things is really kind of important. The idea that businesses would just naturally fall upon that and come up with that on their own, I think that's a naive notion, and it's bearing out in the literature when you think of that statistic of 1 in 5 being around 5 years later. It's kind of like looking at kids and saying, oh, 1 in 5 are walking 5 years later. So we need to do some learning that is more purposeful and structured, and that's what Baldrige can provide, is helping to any size of organization. You don't have to be a large scale hospital. You can be, we've had Baldrige winners that have 50 employees. It really is your approach and how you go about doing your business. We don't tell you which tools to use. We just give you this framework from which to operate. So what is Baldrige? Well, Baldrige is a lot of things. Baldrige is that national Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award that is a presidential award, as I said. It's also executive development. We have a fellows program for C-suite individuals. We have the national conference, the Quest for Excellence conference, that happens every April. We have organization-wide management tools, the most obvious of which is the Baldrige framework, which was the previous slide. We have organizational assessments, so you can figure out where you are and where you want to go, because a lot of this really is having that strategic sense of purpose and vision. And it takes a lot to get that, to get all of the oars rowing in the right direction in an organization. And it's surprisingly easy to have a lot of ad hoc processes sort of get along and actually perform the work of the business, but maybe really inefficiently. So a lot of Baldrige is about getting better and knowing where you are and knowing how you're getting better. So 36 years of knowledge and relationships and all kinds of community. One of the most heartening parts of my Baldrige journey for the 4 years that I've been working for Baldrige was my first Quest conference, and looking at a room full of government, education, healthcare, nonprofit, all kinds of different businesses, learning from a hospital about how they approach their strategy and the tools they use to build their strategy, and how it's systematized across the organization, how it's deployed to each and every one of its stakeholders. Just all these different levels of looking at what role model excellence is with strategy deployment. So there's a huge community to learn from Baldrige. So your steps for moving forward from today would be looking at the Excellence Builder. That's kind of a broken down model of Baldrige. It's sort of for the maturing or developing organizations. You could become a Baldrige examiner. We will be doing applications probably next late kind of winter, spring. You could attend our national conference that I've mentioned. You can do the self-assessments, or you can contact your local alliance. They're Baldrige-based programs that are regionally located across the country, where you can follow the link that's listed here, and essentially you can find one that's near you. And that's how you can move forward with that. So I am going to stop at this point.
Great, Kelly. I got a question.
Sure, go.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Like so there's a lot of things. You have 5 things on there that folks can do, right? Talk about accessibility. Like, are all of those things free? Do all of them cost money? Is it some cost money and some for free, or what's the deal?
All of them are free, your tax dollars, well, in the sense of all of the content, the organizational development tools, the Baldrige framework. Those are things that you can download from our website, which is why you keep seeing the Baldrige resources there. In terms of contacting your alliance, I can tell you that the consulting and organizational development that they'll move you through is way more affordable than contracting with other organizational development consultants. Because essentially they'll move you through a model that you can own and use yourself, because it was developed by us nationally.
That's great. So we have a lot of systems leaders here on this call doing so. This is great, and I suspect a lot know about Baldrige. But as we also know, the manufacturers, some who here that are in associations of manufacturers. We have about 250,000 in the country. Most of them are small and medium size. I would say, many are less than 50. So do these tools apply, to them, and which ones are the best on-ramps for improving their smaller organizations? Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say using the Are We Making Progress tool is the first one, because what it is sort of a self-awareness, a self-assessment of the organization, where it'll ask you some key questions that you will honestly stop and go, I don't know what we do with that. We should get together and talk about that. It really does help you know that, oh, we're doing more than I thought we were. We're doing great in these different areas, or big blank blinks on whole questions of what. So you start getting a sense of where gaps might be, key strategic gaps in the running of your organization. Because like I said, operations and operational development in a whole systems perspective may not come naturally or instinctively to everyone. And so that's kind of what it would give you. The next step would be the organizational development tool, or the organizational profile tool. That fascinates me when you start asking questions about your organization and think, we've never really segmented our market, or we haven't thought about that. We haven't thought about deploying to different segments in different ways. So you start getting into questions that are asked where it just prompts a lot of thought and questioning. Any organization of any size could get use out of those things.
Thanks, Kelly. We just have another couple of minutes. Any questions for Kelly or comments? What a great speaker, and this is great information. I hope this is just a start of a closer relationship we have with you guys. Honestly, I mean, systems leadership for sustainable development in the manufacturing cornerstone is kind of like our tagline, and that's going to be creating these stronger organizations, but also these stronger networks of organizations, which I think sounds like Baldrige really applies to. So thank you for that. Yeah,
One thing I
and
wanted to mention real
please,
quick that
yeah.
I didn't, because it was actually the part of my engaging with most of MEP, which MEP is a part of National Network, is a part of NIST. We started developing a job quality toolkit with the Department of Commerce, because we knew that there's a huge job quality issue in the United States. And most jobs in the United States are in small to medium-sized businesses. One of the points of the job quality toolkit, and it is at the Baldrige site and you can find it, was to give lots of different small, almost a la carte menu options for businesses for things like recruitment, retention, hiring, benefits, any kind of belonging, your culture. So they're just small ideas that you can take away that help you, because we know that there is a real issue right now with getting skilled workers and finding them and attracting them and then keeping them. So that was the other little plug that I wanted to make.
No, I'm glad you did, Kelly. It's great to have you on. We're about at the end here. I want to say thank you to you, Kelly, and thanks to all you guys for using the chat. I see some great notes in there from our longtime leader in Chicago, Christine Napo, about how great the program is, Kelly. And she was a Baldrige examiner and had lots of good things in that experience. Shout out to Dan Radomski there in Michigan for his drop in the chat. And thanks, Dan, for the offer on the Manufacturing Momentum Summit. We need a lot of teammates to come together. We're thinking it's probably going to be in DC, but point taken about how important it is to distribute these convenings around the country. Any other final words before we sign off? We try to respect your time and be right at 30 minutes. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Thanks so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.